actually write resumes for a living. I do other stuff too. I do presentations. I also teach at Rutgers. I do, career coaching and interview coaching. But honestly, the bulk of what I do is help people write their resumes, or essentially write them for them. So what I handed out to you guys, and I do have everything that I talk about, I have basically a tip sheet for it that I'm going to hand out at the end. And I also have my business cards for you guys at the end. But what I just wanted to get to you is what I'm basically calling a Frankenstein's monster of someone's resume, which means that these are all real experiences of clients that I've worked with that they've had while they were in high school. My career, initially for 13 years was working with college students. So a lot of those students were first-year students. And so the first resume that we put together had a lot of high school information on it. Once you get to college and you have a year of education, once you get to sophomore year, a lot of the time you're dropping the information from high school and really focusing on college. But these experiences, some belong to former students that I worked with while I worked at Rutgers, and some also belong to clients that I've had through my business that were college students. So basically what I did was, the name is not a real name and the places are not real places. I changed all that information. But these are real experiences. So when you first look at it, you might kind of feel like, oh my God, as a high school student, am I really supposed to have this much experience? And so the first thing I wanted to say was, no, you don't have to have all this experience, and if you don't, it's absolutely fine. But it kind of lets you know that by the time you're graduating, because I have this person sort of set to graduate in May of this year, you could have all this experience. There are actually a lot of things that you do right now that you may not consider to be experience, and things that you could do as a high school student. So the first thing I wanted to ask everybody was, how many of you, with a small group, but how many of you in your high school are involved in any kind of club or committee or like yearbook or sport or student government? So quite a few. Okay, for a small group, you have a lot of people. What clubs or organizations are you involved in right now?
Volleyball.
Volleyball?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Biomed Club and Interact Club.
Okay, Biomed and Interact is the other one? Okay. Anyone else?
It's something called the Viking Closet Club, where we have clothes for people who need them in our school.
Ooh, I like that. That's awesome. So it's like a charity type of thing. Okay. Anyone else? Clubs that you belong to or part of? Yeah. FBLA and Red Cross. So what is sort of common about basically different clubs or organizations or committees that you might be on is that usually students put them on their resume kind of like they just list it. It'll just be like, Red Cross member, or president, student government, or, committee member, yearbook. And you don't say much more about it. So what I'm encouraging you to do, and why I provide this resume, is to really think about what you do as being either the president or secretary or even a member of an organization. What is it that entails? How many of you, for whatever organization you're involved in, have ever had to do work in the evening or the weekend? Okay, a couple people. It's kind of like a job. You may not get paid for it, and it may not require you to do it, 20 hours a week, but it's kind of like a job. It's something extra that you do because you know that either, again, you enjoy it, or it's a skill builder, you're getting something out of it, you're learning something from it. So with this resume, basically what I did was I tried to think about what would be a couple of things as far as committees or organizations that are available in high school that might be marketing focused. And I happen to pull these from students that I've worked with in the past. So DECA, does anyone know what DECA is? Okay, I hear one. If your school has a DECA chapter, you usually know what it is. If it doesn't, you may not know what it is. It's called the Distributed Education Clubs of America. I specifically put it on here and like to talk a little bit about it also because even if you don't have it in your high school, the person actually that I pulled this from, she's the one who launched and I took that off because I wanted to focus on what she did there, but she launched her high school's chapter of DECA. So if you're interested in knowing more about it or seeing if that could be something your high school has, you could actually launch it yourself. But basically, DECA's great because it's an organization that allows you to write business plans, to do marketing plans, there's national competitions between high schools. So what I have here is basically just serve as president of the chapter, organizing fundraisers, coordinating volunteer work for students to serve the community, and creating marketing strategies for upcoming events. So basically, instead of just kind of saying President DECA, to think about, well, what do I do? If this is something that I do, what does that involve for me? And how can I present that in a way that shows the skills that I'm getting from it? Yearbook is another kind of common thing that a lot of students are involved in at one time of, whether it's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And yearbook is another thing that has a marketing element to it. Yearbook, one, you have to get people to buy it. And two, you have to present it in a way that is going to be appealing to the people that are reading it, so that they like what they see, that represents the entire school. I'm sure sometimes, you look at your book and you feel like, oh, there's only like a certain group of students that are really focused on here, and what about all these other people? So the committee of people that put together a yearbook really have to think about how can they represent the large majority of the people in the school, of the different sort of subpopulations in that school. So it is a marketing type of an activity. So here we have designed several two-page spreads of sports, student life, and band, which entail taking photographs, formatting them on the computer using Adobe Photoshop, and writing captions with quotes. So again, thinking, what do I do if this is something that I'm involved in? So this is something you can think about for the clubs and organizations that you're involved in. What would you say about it? If you had to write a bullet or two about what you do there, what would you say? How would you convey that? How many of you have done any volunteer work in the community? Okay, a few people. What type of volunteer work have you done?
Volunteering at Plainsboro Preserve.
Plainsboro Preserve? Is that like an environmental organization? Okay, so environmental organization. Anyone else?
I volunteered at our school's Snack Shack.
Okay, Snack Shack. Okay, great.
I'm part of the track club, so we do like charity and like community service work.
Okay.
So,
Great. So community service. Other people?
there's a Feed the Children.
What is it?
Feed the Children.
Feed the children. Okay, great. So sort of like a larger type of organization, so not just a local community. I have a few more just in case anyone else down there. Volunteer work is a really, really good way to get experience, and it's low commitment. This is one of the things I think that's great for high school students, even college students, because we've really talked about the importance of not just thinking about the importance of having a good GPA and doing well in your classes. Obviously, it's equally important, but getting some type of hands-on experience. Part-time jobs are great too, but sometimes, that means that you're getting paid for them, but it might mean you have to work 10, 20, possibly hours a week, which makes it a little harder to concentrate on school. Volunteer work might be something that you do for a couple hours a week. Sometimes there are volunteer things that are one-time events. It's one big event that you're involved in. Sometimes volunteer work is something that you do once a month. On the sheet that or the tip sheet that I'm going to hand out to you at the end, I have two really good sites on there, websites, that are basically allow you to search for volunteer work in the local area. And you can also search based on what it is that you'd like to do. One of the things that is, I think, often a misperception about volunteer work is that all of it is related to caretaking, counseling, and what would seem more like therapy and care types of work. One of the things that I put on the sample resume is, again, another former client of mine who's a student who basically volunteered with an animal shelter and did brochures, did flyers, did press releases, helped them with the website, helped them with social media, but basically helped them with marketing the organization. So most nonprofits, they're nonprofit, which means that they don't have tons of money. They look for people to volunteer to do a lot of the things that a big corporation would pay somebody to do. So while you may not get paid to do this type of work, it is a great skill builder. It's probably something that would be fun to do, and it's low commitment. So you can get experience, but it doesn't mean that you have to go 10, 20 hours a week and spend a lot of time there. What about, has anyone ever been involved in like a summer internship or any type of internship? These are much less common at the high school level, but they do exist. And then I also, again, have a link to internships.com on the sheet that I'm going to send out at the end. That's a great place to, and you can certainly talk with high school guidance counselors and teachers as well to see if they know about anything available to high school students for internships. But this site is great because you can look right in New Jersey and see what's in your local community. They'll tell you whether they're looking for a high school diploma, so you'll get a sense of whether or not they're just specifically targeting college students or people who are older. But a lot of these places are looking for high school students too. And again, these particular internships were high school students, and they did them in the summer. Social media is huge as far as marketing right now. And the reality is, organizations and corporations realize that young people understand social media a lot better than some of the older generation. For the older generation, it's more of something that's self-taught that you learn about. But social media has been a part of your lives from the get. So they look for young people to do a lot of their social media marketing. And that's why you see a lot of internships in that particular area. Has anyone ever done any job shadowing, or do you know what that is?
Yeah.
You've done job shadow?
I haven't done it, I know what it is.
You know what it is. Okay, good. Job shadowing is great. You think of an internship, it's typically like, it's a season usually. Summer, fall, spring, you do an internship. It's usually like a full season, a few months. An externship is another, I'll mention, something that you hear a lot less of, but it's usually about a week long, an externship. Job shadowing can be as quick as a day or an afternoon or a couple of days. Basically, to do job shadowing, it's another low commitment type of activity, and it's something that you do that if you think you have an interest in a particular area, that you want to know a little bit more about it. How many of you have, let's say, a parent or mom or dad's friend or some adult that you know that works in a marketing or advertising sales kind of field? Okay, a few people. It would make sense or be feasible for you, especially if you know that person well enough, to ask them if you wanted, if they would mind you spending an afternoon with them or a date with them, and just kind of getting a sense of what they do. And that's why they call it shadowing, because you're kind of following them around, so to speak. But what you get out of it is you get to see, what does a typical day in life really look like? What does a meeting look like? How much is the phone ringing? How many emails are these people getting? What projects are they working on? And you get to ask them questions and really get a sense of what they do and why they do it. So it kind of also is like, if you've heard of an informational interview, where you basically just interview someone who's in a career that you're interested in to find out what they do every day. It's like a step beyond that. You get to do informational interviewing during the job shadowing experience, but you also really get to see what it looks like. What is it like to really work in this type of an environment? In the past couple of groups that I've had here, a couple of people who did some job shadowing, and some of them said that the experience, and a couple of people who got to actually watch surgeries happen, which I thought was like, wow, that's pretty awesome for a high school student to get to see that. And one of them, there was two people who got to see a surgery. One of them said that it was awesome because I felt like I got to see what it's really like. I really feel like this is something I could do every day. And it was a positive experience because they felt like, yeah, that solidifies that I like this. The other student said, I got to see like 6 surgeries and I realized that I want nothing to do with that. So it's the other thing that can happen. But they're both positives. I always share that when I was in college, I did an externship. So it was a week long. It was back when I was a junior in college. And at that point, I thought that I wanted to either be a prison psychologist or I wanted to work in a psychiatric hospital. So I was placed in Marlborough Psychiatric for a week with 53 paranoid schizophrenics with criminal histories. and I realized I didn't want to do that for a living after a week. So it can also veer you in a different direction, and I'm glad I know, because perhaps I would have pursued something that wasn't a very good fit for me. So shadowing is great. It's also something you could put on your resume. You could say, you know, job shadow, and you can write the place for whoever it was. What did you learn there? So these are resume builders as well, but they're also, you know, basically helping you to narrow down what you really want to do. Other things, once you obviously have these experiences, you have to figure out how you're going to put it on paper. So this is why I sent this around, so that you can have a copy of how do you present all of it. So basically, I thought about, again, what types of organizations some of you might be involved in, former clients of mine were involved in, part-time jobs. Has anyone ever had a retail job before? No? Each of the rooms, you know, either had a couple people or, you know, I think one room had quite a few, but retail is kind of a common job for a lot of high school students to have, because sometimes they'll let you do like 10, 15 hours a week and it's not a lot, but you can make a few bucks. You know, it's work experience, you learn. Mark DiBenedetto, I think, was a great sales pitch for retail positions because it obviously propelled him in a great direction. But even if it's just something that you do for the time being, this is a way of showing you if you do a job like that, you can actually gain a lot of really great skills from it. And this is sort of putting it all together. If you have a resume, a lot of students will put like a skills section at the bottom of their resume, and it'll list some, usually the things that I've often seen from the people that I've worked with have been like time management, communication, computer, trying to think of other, writing. But those are soft skills, which are good, and you can definitely mention soft skills. But it's also important to think about what hard skills you have that are related to the field that you're interested in. So again, if you're thinking about marketing or advertising as a possible career option, and maybe can apply for an internship in that area, if you're putting together a resume, you can think about, well, what skills do I have that are related to that? So specifically for someone who's done these things, these particular yearbook, DECA, a couple of marketing internships, marketing volunteer work, sales work. Some of the skills that you would get hard skills from that, we have right at the top, team leadership. If you're president of any sort of club, you got to lead a team. Have any of you ever had to like lead a group before in any way? Not yet? Okay. If you do, and if you've ever worked in a group, has anyone ever had to do a group project? Is it easy?
Yeah.
Is it easy?
Not always.
Not always. Why?
Because if you don't like the other person, and you guys don't have like the same ideas and stuff.
Right. So a lot of times in groups, and this is in work settings and everywhere, people have different ideas, they have different ways of doing things. So if you find yourself at any point, let's say you become a vice president or a president of, let's say, I don't know, student government or something like that, you're going to realize that, getting people to get the best out of them, figure out what people are good at, and motivating people, dealing with, resolving conflicts is a skill. And I'm calling that team leadership. You could call it conflict resolution, a lot of other things too. But that's a skill that this particular student would have. Have you ever had to, for anything, put together a flyer or any type of brochure for an event that you were involved in or that was going on? Not yet? Okay. Yeah.
Rushel. Rushel.
What's that? I'm sorry.
It's like a campaign thing.
It's actually
Yeah.
Okay, for like a campaign, so putting like campaign flyers, posters, things like that?
Yeah. Calling
Perfect.
people that
Perfect. That's an example of marketing. On this obviously entry-level small scale, but it's marketing. It's how marketing starts out. Before you can get into the serious marketing, you have to start somewhere. And a lot of that is really just with playing around with Word and with Publisher and PowerPoint and how you put together a presentation or how you use Publisher to move language around? How do you get how do you create something that the eye is drawn to, that's engaging to people, that gets people's attention? How do you think about what your audience wants and present that to them? So again, marketing material development is a skill. Anyone ever have to put together any kind of event or help put together an event or a fundraiser or anything like that? That's another skill set. So if you're, again, I had some students talk about that they had an organization, a club they were involved in, they had to do fundraising. Basically had to call up strangers and ask them for money. That's a skill set. Or if you've ever had to put together, let's say, some kind of high school dance, and you had to find the DJ, or you had to find who's going to cater it. Sometimes you may not even realize that these are skills that you're gaining. I saw some heads shaking. That a lot of times we sort of shortchange ourselves in thinking like, I can't do that, no, I've never done that before. But if you really start to dig and think, and I think that's one of the smartest things you can do, is get on a computer or a piece of paper, or however your brainstorming goes, and think, what have I done? What are all the things that I've been involved in since I've been in high school? And what skills have I got out of it? Are any of these skills that I have? Have I done any of this stuff? Visual merchandising, when you work in retail, sometimes you're asked to put together store displays, so that's another skill set. Sales and customer service, obviously. So again, it's really thinking, these are hard skills. They're hard skills that are specifically related to marketing and advertising fields. So if you're looking, let's say, for a marketing internship, you can think like, well, where have I done some of this before? Even if it was, again, for a part-time job, a volunteer job that you have, or for a club that you're involved in school. So these are some ways of presenting the information. Okay, let's talk about social media. How many of you, all right, I'm gonna take a guess that most of you are on Facebook, if not everybody. Hands, who's on Facebook? Okay, yeah, the large majority of us. I'm on Facebook too. Facebook, I think, is, when you are a small business, let me just get like my time there. I have it. 1:05. These are pretty good. Facebook, when you have a small business, for somebody like me, I have a Facebook business page. That's pretty common for somebody who does what I do. And that's another way of sort of getting your face out there, getting your word out there, reaching another group of people that maybe you wouldn't have reached before. I think it's actually gotten the attention of people that are, quote, my friends on Facebook, who may not have known that that's what I do, because they're people that knew me years ago, and I hear from people that way. Facebook for you guys is still largely a social networking site. You may use it for other purposes later on, but right now I think the most important thing with Facebook is how many of you have your privacy settings set high so the only people can see anything about you are your friends? How many of you have it public so anybody can see anything?
Everyone but my parents.
It's funny you say that, because I mentioned earlier that I know at least a couple of people who I've known their parents, and who, that person friended me then on Facebook, and I learned later that they had a Facebook page that mom knew about, and then there was the other one. So sometimes people have multiple Facebook pages. What I'll say is this. One, set your privacy settings high, regardless. I don't care who knows about your page, set them high, because if you are applying for any kind of internship or volunteer work or whatever, and you're, whether you're handing your resume to somebody or you're just filling out an application, one of the first things that any employer or hiring person does is Google you, or go on LinkedIn and look for you, which I'm going to talk about. And if they Google you and they can find your Facebook page, they can get into all your business, and you don't want that. So one, set your privacy settings high. Two, regardless of whether your privacy settings are high, I'm still going to give you 2 words of smart advice. One, when you're in a bad mood and you want to go on Facebook and curse about something or tell someone off, or all the feelings that we all have sometimes, we all have our moments, Don't do it. Calm yourself down first. Think before you post and put anything in writing. If there's any wonderful message that my mother gave me when I was very young, it was think before you put anything in writing. What you say with your mouth is very important. But perhaps what's even more important sometimes is what you put in writing, because it could get you in a lot of trouble because it lives on and on and on, especially in the world of the internet. So before you post about being mad about something or talking about someone or all the things that we have, the feelings that are natural and normal, calm down and don't do it. 2, the party pictures, all that. Be careful, not just your profile picture, but any pictures that you have on Facebook. Be careful what you post. Has anyone ever had a friend that isn't their friend anymore? And that's why. Because even if your privacy settings are high, you could have a friend on Facebook that has seen the things that you've posted, whether it's verbal or pictures, and now they don't like you anymore, and they can do whatever they want with that information. And it's horrible to have to think like that, but that's one reason. The other reason is just personal integrity. It's always good to, we talk about personal branding, it's always good to have the message that you send out there to the world be a positive one. It's better for people to think of you as someone who's positive, who doesn't complain about other people, who doesn't spew and vent. Your friends might know that you do some of that stuff, but in a public forum like that, it's always best to kind of avoid that. That's Facebook. Anybody know about LinkedIn? Oh, good, a couple people. On it by chance? No, not yet. Okay. LinkedIn for people in the workforce has become a must. I don't even know if I can say anything. It's a must. I tell everybody I work with that's a seasoned professional that they need to be on LinkedIn. LinkedIn for professionals is the first place that recruiters look for people before they even post a job on their website, before they put it on a big job board or a small job board. A lot of recruiters, internal recruiters, and hired recruiters will look on LinkedIn first to see if they can find candidates that match. Even if those candidates are employed, they can even try to contact you and steal you away. That's a practice. So for professionals, it's very, very critical. For college students and high school students, it's becoming more common. Definitely for college students. But you guys could get on there. Let me tell you what you could do with it. If you have a resume, you complete your resume, kind of think, the stuff that we've talked about in terms of what skills have I gotten from the things that I have done, and you complete your resume. You can take that information and you put it on LinkedIn. And of course, thinking about, is there anything on there that you don't want everybody to know about? And if there is, remove it. But nonetheless, awards, honors, courses that you're taking. I understand that most of you are in some kind of marketing course. You can mention that. The other thing that you could do is if you've ever had a supervisor of a part-time job or an internship or a volunteer opportunity, even if it was a job shadow experience or somebody who oversaw the club that you're in, a teacher or guidance counselor in high school, if they're on LinkedIn, you could ask them, the worst that can happen is they say no and life goes on, but you could ask them if they'd be willing to write a little brief endorsement about you. 1 or 2 lines, 3 lines that basically said that, when I worked with so-and-so, she had an excellent work ethic, always on time, she was always interested in taking in new projects, very creative, whatever it might be. But something that when somebody decides to Google you or look you up on LinkedIn, they would find something where they can go, real people who've worked with this person are willing to back them up, to put their name behind you and say that, yeah, working with this person was a great experience and I have something positive to say about you. So it's kind of like, almost like reviewing someone's references before you even bring them in for an interview. So that's one of the really good things about LinkedIn. There are a lot of good things about LinkedIn. Another one is that, again, you're interested in, let's say, marketing advertising. There's groups on LinkedIn that you can join where you would get weekly digests about conversations, articles, things that are relevant to the field that you're interested in that you can read about, keep up with. It begins to build a network of people that you can reach out to. possibly for job shadow opportunities or informational interviews. Who knows what this network could eventually mean to you in your career. Other things, Twitter. Anybody on Twitter? Okay, a few people on Twitter. Twitter is definitely more popular than LinkedIn. Twitter, people use it for, I think, two different purposes. Some people use it like it's Facebook, meaning it's social networking, and some people use it like it's professional networking, more like a LinkedIn. The way that you can use Twitter for more professional purposes, how many of you read online articles or blogs about stuff you're interested in? Okay, I hear other people talking about social media. Everybody's talking about social media. If you read articles online or blogs, especially things that are, about politics or what's news that's going on in the world, or again, anything related to the industry that you're interested in, you can tweet it. The way that I use my Twitter account is strictly that the articles that I read, the blogs I read online that have anything to do with resumes or interviewing or job search or anything of the like, or social media, types of things. If I read something good, I tweet it. I tweet like once a week usually, or every 10 days. I used to do it more. But basically what happens is in the 48 hours following when I tweet, and I usually will only tweet like 5 things at a time, I end up getting followers. It's like 5 people will follow me in the 48 hours following and after I tweet. The good thing about followers is that these are people that basically have set a hashtag on their Twitter account, and anybody who writes about this specific topic, they get alerted about it. So now they know that you know something about this particular field that they're interested in, and they decide to follow you. It's a way of also establishing yourself as a knowledgeable person and getting other people to see you that way and begin to see yourself that way. So Twitter can be great for that. Blogging, if you're someone who likes to write. Any writers in the room or like to write people? Not one. Good. For me, it started with poetry. I loved to write poetry when I was in high school, and it evolved as time went on. But if you like to write and you think this is a skill area, blogging is another thing. And again, blogging, like any advice I would give is being careful about what you say, obviously. But if you've got something to say and you feel knowledgeable about a topic or passionate about a topic, and you love to write, having a blog may not be a bad idea. If you think of blogs that you follow, most of them started out where nobody knew about it and nobody followed them. But then a couple of friends started to follow them, and then a couple of friends tweeted about them. And then more people started to follow the blog because they got followers from Twitter. And it's sort of just this cycle of how you begin again to develop yourself as a person who knows something about a particular field. And it's also something you can say on your resume. If you're, an avid blogger, or even you blog every once in a while, it's definitely something you can say on your resume. Writing is one of the most critical skills of marketing. If you can write copy, you have some marketing ability already. So if you can write, if you can edit, those are some of the earliest things that marketing assistants do. They're involved in the writing and editing process of marketing material. So that's definitely a marketing skill set. And I know I only have like a couple of minutes in a minute here. I'm going to hand out these basically tips. There's some more stuff on the back that you'll see. You can pass these around. This is all the stuff I went over, a few more things, and I don't want to go into everything. There's tips for interviewing, developing a networking business card. There's a sample on the back here that I want to mention. The networking business card might not be a bad idea. For an event like this, if you had something, let's say that you went to, Staples and bought cardstock, and on your home printer You just put your name, your phone, your email, your LinkedIn account if you have one, or if you use Twitter for a professional purpose, or you have a blog, whatever. And write, just like we have on the resume, some of the skills, something that says, high school student, with a passion for marketing, with a background in, or with experience with team leadership, marketing material development, event planning, social media marketing, whatever your skill sets are. If you come to an event like this, when you go to lunch, which I think is happening now, soon, right? I don't know, did it happen already?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, not for me. But if, you could in that room, if there's somebody like Mark DiBenedetto or anybody that you wanted to talk with, you say, Mark talked about being a buyer. And let's say there's someone in this room that, feels like, wow, that sounds really interesting, I want to know more about that. You could go up to Mark and, introduce yourself. And if maybe you wouldn't have lots of time to talk now, you could hand your networking business card to Mark, tell him a brief little thing about yourself. Here's my card. I'd love to set up a time to talk with you over the phone. And it facilitates that conversation and the entry to it a lot more easily. So these are little things that you can do. So I know I'm out of time, so let me ask you if you have any questions that you can think of for me. Yes?
What's your Twitter account? What's your Twitter account?
What's my Twitter account? Resume_doctor. Good one. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Oh, you didn't get the second paper. I'm sorry.
We have more.
Is there
extra?
You got more? Okay, got it. Yes.
What types of businesses do you promote?
What types of businesses do I promote?
Yeah.
Well, what I do is I write resumes for people, but who I write resumes for is everybody. I write resumes for college students, new graduates, mid-level, CFOs, CEOs, COOs, vice presidents, presidents, business owners, everybody, in every different industry that you can think of. But in terms of, and one thing I will say that I do is I'm very proud that when I help a client start a business, because that's another thing I do is coach people to start small businesses, I often will, if they allow me, I will put their website information on my site. So I do promote my clients' businesses in that way.